In the heart of America's coal country, two men built a railroad so efficient and profitable it threatened the nation's industrial giants, and nearly no one saw it coming. Secret deals moved over $30 million, carving 443 miles of track through mountains and into history. But how did a hidden partnership outsmart an entire industry, and what lasting consequences did it spark? Subscribe for the untold story behind America's richest little railroad and the billionaire who built it in secret. William Nelson Page knew the land as well as anyone alive. Raised in the valleys of West Virginia, he studied every ridge and river, searching for a way to move coal east without surrendering to the stranglehold of the region's powerful railroads. Page had vision and technical skill, but not the kind of capital it would take to carve a railroad through the mountains. That is where Henry Huttleston Rogers entered the picture. A Standard Oil executive with a personal fortune so vast it could fund entire industries, and a taste for working in the shadows. Rogers did not just write checks, he insisted on absolute secrecy. To avoid alerting the Chesapeake and Ohio or the Norfolk and Western, he used a maze of holding companies and frontmen. The Deepwater Railway, chartered in West Virginia, became the public face. In Virginia, the Tidewater Railway appeared as a separate project, with Page listed as president of both. Behind the scenes, Rogers funneled more than $30 million through Boston financier Godfrey M. Hyams, quietly buying land and rights of way before competitors could react. This partnership allowed Page to design for efficiency and scale, not for quick profits or Wall Street approval. No public debt, no outside interference, just private capital and a shared determination to build a railroad that answered to no one but its creators. By the time rivals realized what was happening, the pieces were already in place, and the engineering ambitions could finally run free. Construction began in 1905, and the work was relentless from the start. More than 10,000 men poured into the hills, armed with picks, shovels, and little else. The route stretched nearly 443 miles, cutting a direct line from the coalfields of West Virginia to the docks at Sewell's Point. Every mile demanded sweat and ingenuity. 64% of the West Virginia section had to be blasted or chipped from solid rock, much of it by hand. Steam shovels and mules hauled away the spoil, but the hardest work fell on human backs. The crews faced some of the roughest ground in Appalachia. Deep hollows, sheer ridges, and rivers forced them to build massive trestles and carve long tunnels. The Garwood trestle soared over 100 feet, and Tunnel Number 9 bored through the mountain's heart. At the peak of construction, 1,200 dump cars and 124 locomotives moved earth and stone day and night. The noise and dust never let up. By 1909, the last spike was driven. The Virginian Railway didn't just cross the mountains, it conquered them. The line stood as proof of what sheer labor and stubborn will could achieve, setting the stage for a railroad built to last, not just to run. Engineers working for the Virginian Railway faced a clear mandate: build a line that would outlast and outperform anything in the region. Every decision came back to efficiency, reliability, and long-term savings. Survey notes from the earliest days reveal how the route was plotted with an almost stubborn insistence on gentle grades, never exceeding 2.07%, even through the most rugged Appalachian terrain. Where rival railroads twisted across sharp curves and steep climbs, the Virginians swept through broad arcs and shallow inclines, demanding more effort and cost up front, but promising smoother, faster movement for decades to come. Heavy rail, often weighing 85 to 100 pounds per yard, rested on deep beds of crushed stone ballast, designed to hold up under the weight of loaded coal trains with minimal maintenance. Bridges and trestles were built to handle far more than the heaviest loads then known, and cuts were blasted wide enough to allow for future expansion. This was not extravagance, it was a calculated investment. William Nelson Page and his team understood that every extra dollar spent on construction would come back many times over in reduced fuel, fewer breakdowns, and lower labor costs. Henry Rogers summed up the philosophy with a simple remark: "Nothing is too good for my railroad." The result was a line where loaded trains could roll downhill almost all the way from the West Virginia coalfields to the Virginia tidewater, while empties made the easier climb back. The engineering choices documented in survey profiles and construction records set the Virginian apart as a railroad built for the future, not just for the present. Coal poured out of the West Virginia hills in endless black rivers, and the Virginian Railway answered with muscle built for the job. On rails laid heavier than most main lines, the railroad unleashed some of the largest steam locomotives ever to run east of the Mississippi. The articulated 210-10-2 Mallet engines, each weighing over 500,000 pounds, thundered through the mountains with a force that left rivals in awe. These giants boasted tractive effort ratings above 120,000 pounds, enough to haul trains of loaded hoppers stretching for more than a mile. Period newspapers called them monsters of the rails. On the long, gentle grades designed by William Nelson Page, these locomotives could pull more coal with fewer helpers than any competitor. The power did not stop with the Mallets. The Virginian roster grew to include 284 Berkshires and massive 210-4 locomotives, each built to wring every ounce of efficiency from the overbuilt line. Crews told stories of climbing out of Elmore Yard with 13,000 tons behind a single engine, the exhaust rolling skyward as the train barely slowed for the hills. On the downhill run toward the tidewater, gravity and engineering worked together, letting loaded trains coast for miles with brakes set and steam throttled back. Every ton moved by these machines meant profits for the company and steady work for the men who ran them. But steam had limits, even on a line this forgiving. Smoke choked the tunnels, and the steepest stretches still taxed the biggest engines. The next leap would demand something even more advanced. In 1922, the Virginian Railway's engineers faced a new challenge: how to move even more coal over the steepest grades without choking tunnels or straining the biggest steam engines. Their answer was electrification on a scale never before seen in the Appalachian Mountains. Work crews began stringing catenary wire along 134 miles of main line, from Mullins, West Virginia to Roanoke, Virginia. The system ran at 11,000 volts alternating current, powered by a new generating plant at Narrows, Virginia, built specifically for the railroad. 7 substations spaced along the route transformed high-voltage current into a steady lifeline for the electric locomotives that would soon replace steam on the toughest stretches. The price tag, $15 million, was enormous for the era, but every mile of wire promised smoother, faster, and cleaner movement of coal. Construction records and contract documents show the scale. Copper wire and steel poles rose along deep cuts and high trestles as teams worked mile by mile to bring the future to the mountains. The first electric locomotives to tackle the Virginians' mountain grades arrived in 1925, 3-unit box cab sets built by Alco and Westinghouse. Each set delivered a staggering 6,000 horsepower, making them the most powerful mainline electrics in the country at the time. A new standard of power. Their starting tractive effort topped 231,000 pounds, more than double the brute force of the Mallet steam giants they replaced. These machines could grip the rails with such intensity that entire coal trains, fully loaded, surged out of Mullins Yard and climbed the steepest stretches without the need for multiple steam helpers. Logs from the period show these box cabs routinely handled the heaviest tonnage the railroad could throw at them, conquering grades that had once slowed traffic to a crawl. On the downhill runs, regenerative braking fed power back into the system, squeezing efficiency from every mile. For crews used to the heat, smoke, and thunder of steam, the quiet pull of electricity felt like a leap into the future. Coal moved faster, cleaner, and more reliably than ever before. The electrics delivered not just more power, but a new kind of control, setting a benchmark for performance that railroads across the country would chase for decades. Steel and strategy still shape the backbone of American industry. As railroads quietly move nearly 28% of U.S. freight today, the unseen foundations of innovation and ambition echo on. The most efficient paths often begin where no one is watching. Thanks for exploring this piece of hidden history.